with his chest against my chest and his cheek against my cheek, he whispered in my ear, "It's gonna be okay, David. You're okay. You're okay just the way you are."
Authenticity doesn't stop at journaling or sharing your story with one or two other people in a small group. If you want to ramp up the risk level and the reward level of sharing your story and being authentic, you have to go live on stage like I did about a month ago. Hi, I'm Dr. Dave, and welcome back to the Good Life Lab, where we explore tips, tools, and techniques for boosting our mental health and well-being. And I'm in the midst of this series. This is actually the last of the official 12-part series on Boost Your Mood, Queer Dudes, as a way to just package a lot of what I do and try to help people with, as well as myself. The first week was all about connecting with other people or relationships. The second week was all about connecting with something greater than yourself or transcendence. The third week was about connecting to your purpose and your reason for being. And this week, as I finish, is all about connecting with yourself, your authentic self, and how to share that. And so this third part of this week on connecting with yourself, we moved from personal authenticity, door number one, which is all about journaling and kind of getting more self-aware. And then the second door was about sharing your story within a trusted group of people, which could be just a therapist. This third door is all about sharing your story live on stage and how I went through that process recently to become more, really in some ways become more comfortable with myself still in a larger audience or forum. And there's still some things I've been out for a while now, but I'm still embracing and becoming more comfortable with who I am in front of an audience. So that's the next risk level is very high for authenticity, but it's definitely worth the effort. There are a few stages that I've identified in presenting my story live on stage, and I'm going to share those phases with you. Along with these 5 phases, I'm going to be sharing with you one key lesson learned that I want you to get about each of these stages. The first I call the private phase, which is just practicing with yourself. It may involve journaling as well, just being comfortable with your story. So my story today is actually about a time in my life I was kind of severely depressed, and the kinds of things I did to try to come out of that depression, which essentially had to do with following signs, or I call them breadcrumbs. The first sign came to me in a Barnes & Noble when they were more prevalent. This is in Newport, Kentucky, and I was 45 at the time, turning 46 the next month in January. And I came across this magazine, in the article in a magazine called The Economist. It was basically saying we get happier as we get older. And the turning point, ironically, is 46. So I took that as a sign that life can get better, or that I could have hope that it could get better. So in stage 1, the lesson is authenticity begins privately, telling yourself the truth and becoming comfortable with it before you share it with anybody else. And that can happen through journaling and through practicing with yourself on camera. The second phase is a testing phase where you share with a small group. And I did that as part of a pitch night. There was a pitch night for this True Theater event, and there's like a dozen people, and the producer of the event was there. We had to pitch a 5-minute story, and it could be kind of a rough draft idea of what we're thinking about, but I tried to have a polished version of what I wanted to talk about. And so I'll share with you here in a minute just my pitch night story and how that went for me, and then what happened as a result of that. So I took that as a sign that in my depression that life could get happier for me. And so that meant creating this project. So I created this project for my 46th year called Project 46, where I had 3 objectives: to get closer to people, kind of resolve some issues with my faith, and also find a career, kind of go back into higher education that was meaningful. And that was kind of my goal for the year. But overarching all that was really just to lean into what it meant to be happy and to do some research. And I thought the key to that would be just listening to the messages of everyday kind of events, kind of conversations, people I meet, the signs, kind of following signs. So the second phase is all about testing your story with somebody else. The second lesson I learned, authenticity grows by testing yourself and your story in a safe, trusted context. So a little bit of a spoiler, my story was accepted to present live on stage after the pitch night, which involved the next phase of development that I'm calling the refining phase, which is really about coaching and feedback. So once my pitch was accepted, I worked with the producer of the event, and we met via Zoom and 3 times, I think, and I just presented my story. It expanded from 5 minutes to, he wanted to keep it to 10 minutes. And so I fleshed out a 10-minute story, and he gave me some feedback. So I'll share that with you here in a minute too. And the different meetings we had, it's kind of a summary of the different meetings that we had and his feedback.
I want to mention that the way you started the story at the pitch night is, I think, a great way to start it. Mm-hmm. You may remember my talking about the promise at the beginning of a story. And I really want the audience members to understand, if not like 100%, at least have an idea on why this story is appropriate for this particular evening. And the evening is signs, and you came right out and said, this is about 3 signs that saved my life. I mean, it was, I'm crunching it down. I don't remember exactly how you said it, but
that's what it was. Yeah.
It was a really great sort of way in.
There was a second part of that, where he invited a couple other people to hear my story on Zoom as well.
Dave, thank you for that story. It's beautiful. I do have a couple of thoughts on getting people into the story with a little more ease, because I had trouble trying to figure out where you were going, because you went ahead and then you went back and then you went ahead a little bit.
Each phase of this journey, we really started with a small group. It was just me and Dave, the coach, and then a couple people he invited. And in the third phase, the refining phase, the lesson is authenticity gets sharper and clearer when it's reflected back to you by others. So in this trusted group of people, that's a little bit more of a coaching context than just them listening. That increases the level of risk, but also the level of effectiveness in sharing your story. So the fourth phase in developing my story to share live on stage I'm calling the embodying stage. And that involved more practice and a dress rehearsal. We met with a larger group, about 25 or 30 people. There were 5 storytellers that night, and we presented our story, and Dave gave us more feedback. He said at that point he felt comfortable with my story and didn't have any feedback for me. Unfortunately, I didn't capture that experience as part of the dress rehearsal. It was a great experience to practice one more time, and so it's that phase where you begin to own your story in front of a live audience. And in this embodying phase, in the dress rehearsal, authenticity becomes embodied when you practice fully stepping into it. Voice, body, emotions, everything that you might bring to a dress rehearsal. Then the final phase, I'm calling the public phase, or live on stage. I'll share with you just how my live stage performance went. You'll see from the beginning of this video how it went from practicing with myself, pitching, and then to this live 16-minute, it turned out to be 16-minute live performance, and how all that went. In this last public phase, I found that authenticity reaches integration when you've shared your story publicly, which helps you break secrecy and create connection with others. So just a reflection on my experience in being authentic and really going through these phases, starting with journaling and being comfortable with yourself, your story within yourself, becoming self-aware, maybe taking a greater risk and sharing that story with other people in small groups or with a therapist. That increases the level of vulnerability, and also your self-awareness and ability to accept and move past some things in your life. And if you really want the great reward and risk that comes with it, looking for opportunities to share your story in a public forum. And I know I have friends that I've worked with and clients that share their story in a church setting, in a gay-friendly church setting. They share their story and create their own events like I have before, produce my own event where I can share my story and encourage other people to share their stories. And most of the time it's just within a small group. You get comfortable with that first, and then there's a couple resources you might consider if you're traveling, and even if you want to come to Cincinnati and pitch your story. Look at below, I'll share the links, but truththeater.org is a great resource for potentially sharing your story on stage. There's a international group that started out of New York called Moth, and I'll share that with you. And they have this events all over the world, and you can pitch your story and even try to do that live on stage. So I highly recommend this experience of sharing your story in a public forum, live on stage, if you can get to that point in your journey. It's really reflecting on my own experience and what it's helped me with. I think I was still struggling, and I mentioned this at the beginning, that just being out, expressing myself as a gay man and talking about me being gay in a live stage event, it really helped me embrace who I am to a greater extent than I had before. And I've been out for a while. I've had a partner for 13 years, have a lot of gay queer friends and out to my family, but there's still this, I don't know even what to call it really, but a more complete integration, more complete acceptance of who I am when I publicly declared it on stage. And that had some risk to it. There's, in our culture today, I think there's becoming less and less acceptance in some areas, in some parts of our society. So there's still some risk to sharing your story, but also that's the challenge. It's if we shrink back from sharing our story openly because of fear, then the people who are afraid or opposing who we are as queer people, that has more opportunity to spread and grow, and so it's a great way to share your story live on stage, to get our message out there that we're here, that we're real people that have families and jobs, and we're a part of the society. So I find that not only has it been important for me to share my story, but then begin to challenge other people, even people that came to that story that night. I don't know if where they were, but they got to see somebody who was a normal 60-year-old guy talking about his life, his loved ones, and his experience as a gay man. So it has lots of benefits. I think that I'm so glad I did this experience recently, and encourage you to consider that as well, sharing your story at different levels of risk, from within your journal, which maybe that's where you are. That's all you can do right now, is just share your story within your journal, getting it out of yourself and your mind. That's all you can do right now. That's fine. But maybe some of you are at that point where you want to share your story more fully with other people, and taking that risk to start a group or be part of a group of some kind could be the next step that you have. And if you're comfortable with that, then go live.
After decades as a therapist, college educator, and global explorer, our next storyteller's most recent venture is called The Good Life Lab with Dr. Dave, which is a YouTube channel and website dedicated to helping others enhance well-being while navigating life's transitions and challenges. He loves playing pickleball, watching British crime thrillers with his partner, and crafting year-long life change projects for himself and others. Please give it up for Dave Steffen.
All right, so I was browsing books in Barnes & Noble, the one in Newport that used to be there, the two-story monstrosity, if you remember that, with an elevator going up to the second floor coffee shop. I was there late one night with a friend, just kind of probably looking through the psychology and self-help section for books on how to not be depressed or how to be happy. You see, as you heard, I'm a therapist, a former college professor, and positive psychology researcher, which basically means I study the science of happiness. And so I was in this season of at 45, browsing Barnes & Noble, kind of looking for books on happiness, because I was in this season of depression. And I came across this Economist magazine article, which said basically that we get happier as we get older, and the turning point is around 46. So as you heard, I was 45, turning 46 the next month. And I decided to take it as a sign that life could get better for me, that I could get happier once again. And when I'm faced with something major, I kind of create these year-long projects that you heard in the introduction. So I decided to do this year-long happiness project. I called it Project 46. And to give you a little background on, backstory and background on how I got to 45, I'm going to tell you a couple projects that I did, some major projects. So in my 30s, one of my first major projects was I'd always wanted to bike across the country. And so I grabbed some soccer buddies from college, and we launched this project called Where in the World is a Wilbur? Because one of the guys' names was Wilbur. And we dipped our tires into the San Francisco coast, and 3,700 miles later, in 2 months of camper vans with 4 dudes, we dipped our tires into the coast of Jersey and called it a day. The second major project I did was at 40. I wanted to mark that milestone birthday. And so I had always wanted to write a book, so I decided to not watch any TV or media that year, and also not cut my hair for some reason, sort of like a covenant with God, I guess, and myself, and like Samson from the Bible, so I'd have this energy to write the book. But I think underlying kind of all this was this last-ditch effort to not be gay. You see, I knew I was gay around 9 or 10, and for those next 30 years, I did whatever I could to not be gay. I eventually became religious. I went to a conservative Protestant seminary for 6 years. I tried conversion, reparative therapy, went to ex-gay conferences, taught at ex-gay conferences. So whatever I could to not be gay, I tried for 30 years. And so this project at 40 was sort of like one more like good old college try to not be gay. So by the end of that year, I did have a finished self-published book, my first, and then I had long braids in my hair. And for some reason, I still liked Barbra Streisand. And men. So it didn't take, go figure. And so from that point at 41-ish, I decided to kind of embrace who I was as a gay man. And I tried that for a few years, started dating. But I kind of found myself at 44, 45, sort of like the character Annie, played by Kristen Wiig in Bridesmaids. So she's kind of not good at relationships, and then she loses her job and ends up moving back in the house with her mom, which happened to me at 45. Everything was kind of a mess for me, which just kind of brought me to where I was at More Than Normal, just kind of searching for something. So this sign in the Economist magazine, and this new project that I had for being happy, there are 3 areas that I really wanted to focus on for that year. One was to find love in life, which meant finding a partner in crime or partner in life, but also a community. Just wanted to have a greater sense of community. Moving away from kind of my religious community, I needed a new sense of community. So it was my first goal, love in life. Peace with God was the second goal that I had, just kind of finding my better resolution with my faith and my identity. And then my third goal was around a job I liked. So I was in between higher ed gigs, unemployed, and living with my mom. I really wanted to get back into the higher ed world. And so those are my 3 goals. But generally, I just wanted to be happier regardless of my circumstances. And so that was my happiness project. And I thought one way I could maybe do this project was to interview people, like an investigative reporter, that came across my path, and ask them about any secrets of happiness they might have. Which brought me to my second sign. What happened in Kmart, I was stuck in this long line and only one lane open, and kind of frustrated, but also trying to keep this mindset of being happy for the year in mind. I noticed that at the front of the line was a cashier. She's probably in her 80s. And it was just going slowly because she was taking her time with each person and just seemed to show kindness to them, which proved true as I got closer. She was just smiled a lot and was very warm. And so she was that kind of person I really wanted to kind of get to know, because who would be happy working at Kmart in their 80s? And so I went back the next day and asked the manager if I could talk to her, and we got connected, and her name was Ruth. And so I asked her out to coffee and asked her if I could interview her about her life and her secrets to happiness. So I'm going to play this clip of her here in a second, but she essentially said, I asked her about secrets to happiness. She said she didn't have any secrets, and if she did, she didn't really know because they were secrets to her. But observing her at Kmart, and then also, interaction, I knew, as she said, she just loved people. And she loved treating them importantly as it came through her line, treating them like they're children of God, and she didn't think they got that, much in their lives, so she wanted to make sure they got that at Kmart. And then she got off on this tangent. I'm not even sure how we got there, but I have it recorded. And she started talking about being left-handed, and she came across this article by this author who I want you to listen to. I'm going to play the clip here. Left-handed males was the author wrote about, and listen for his name. So go ahead and play the clip.
Well, I'm left-handed, but you're not left-handed, are you? Do you have any people in your family? Oh, but no men.
My brother's left-handed, and my nephew and my niece are left-handed.
Well, the men look under Dr. Donald Joy.
Yes, he's a friend of mine.
How interesting. I've told so many people about him. I don't know him. I just can't believe this.
Would you like me to ask him?
Yes. Oh, he'd probably be bored with me, but I'd be thrilled to death. I'm so glad I met you.
So, yeah, there's just this kind of serendipitous nature of the kind of conversation. She mentioned Dr. Donald Joy, who just so happened to be a seminary professor of mine. And more than that, he was like a mentor, a father figure who got me through those 6 years of seminary. And I'd lost touch with him over the years and didn't think about reconnecting with him because I was now embracing myself as a gay man, and I didn't think he would be okay with that because it was a conservative seminary, and although he was progressive, he was pretty much towing the party line of it's not okay to be gay. But with this project in mind, I thought maybe it's a sign that I need to kind of reconnect with him, and so I found out that he was still in Lexington, where I went to graduate school, and he had just turned 84, retired, and I asked him if I could take him out to a birthday meal, and he said sure. And then we sat in my car afterwards, and I recorded our conversation about happiness. And I said to him, since your name is Dr. Joy, you got to know something about happiness. And he said, interestingly, that he and his wife, now great-grandparents, and they had 30-some children and grandchildren, he and his wife were both looking, kind of reviewing their lives, and came across what he called impact points. And they found that these greatest and richest experiences came out of great disappointment, that they were able to kind of rise above and reconcile them to who they were becoming as people. And because he knew I was kind of in a dark place, he went on to say this to me. So go ahead and play the clip.
I find myself telling folks and observing it in their lives that all of your life experience, whatever it is going to be integrated and be shown of value, no matter how tragic it was, shown of value in the person that you're becoming. And if people are going to be destroyed by something or commit suicide over it, that's a deep regret, because they likely could have incorporated it and risen as unparalleled authorities on the very thing that they struggled with.
So that's the sign, that's the lesson I got from him, that I could become an unparalleled authority on the very thing I struggled with as long as I persevered through this. So we continued our conversation in his office, and I kind of hadn't seen him in a while, so I just kind of unfolded where I was and that I was at a place of trying to accept my identity rather than fight against it. And I wasn't sure how he would take that, being from a conservative background. And then I think it was just the decades of fighting against who I was, and it got to the point in talking with him about this that I just started to break down, started to cry in his office. And it was one of those, deep, heaving, sobbing cries that kind of took over. But he just sat there quietly and listened, and as I calmed down, he said, "David, would you please stand up?" And I stood up, and then he stood up and walked towards me, and he gave me this great big hug. And with his chest against my chest and his cheek against my cheek, he whispered in my ear, "It's gonna be okay, David. You're okay. You're okay just the way you are." And I don't know if anybody else who said that to me would have made any difference, but this man who I knew for so many years, that I looked up to as a father figure, speaking those words to me, he had changed his stance on identity and being gay, and he was affirming me, and that just really spoke to me at that moment. And I wish I could say that things turned around dramatically or instantly got better at that point. These things helped. These 3 signs, the Economist magazine article, meeting Ruth, who led me to Dr. Joy, were like signposts or stepping stones to the next sign over the next several months, which came in therapy and came in friendship and global adventures that I took. All these things I kind of did to claw my way through these circumstances I was in. And to the point where now it became like 16 months after that or 18 months later, in terms of those 3 goals I had for that year, I met a man, and we've been together for 13 years. And I can't see him, but he's over here somewhere because of the lights. So thank you for loving me. I love you. And remember, the signs brought us together, so we're stuck with each other. And the second part of my love and life goal was community. So I also have a number of friends over here, so they're representing that new community that I have. So thank you for being here as well. The second goal I had was kind of a job I liked. And I was able to, 2 years later, it took a while, but when I was 48, I was able to get a job back in higher education and became chair of the behavioral sciences department at a major university, and able to become a full professor and published articles and all that good stuff. But I think more importantly than just the role that I got was this proving kind of Dr. Joy's words to me true, that over those 15 years, I rose as an unparalleled authority on the very thing that I struggle with in the lives of my clients and students. And I think they could see that I not only studied the science of happiness, but I lived it, I experienced it over those 15 years. And then this last area of peace with God and myself, and it's been a little more elusive, but I think I have become much more peaceful and happy about my life in general. And for me, in terms of what I've learned about positive psychology as a researcher and my own life trying to live in happiness, comes down to this study I often refer to. Harvard's done this 85-year study on happiness, the longest of its kind, still ongoing. And I asked ChatGPT to summarize for me these 85 years of happiness studies into one sentence. And this is what it said. I tried this with other AIs too, and it says the same thing. The Harvard study found that good, warm relationships, more than money, fame, IQ, or career success, are the key to lasting happiness, health, and a meaningful life. Good, warm relationships are the key to happiness. I really like, though, how my gay icon says it. It's all about people. People who need people. Are the luckiest people in the world. Translated, people who realize their need for other people are not only the luckiest, but the happiest people in the world. So thank you, Barbara Streisand, and thank you all tonight.
Keep it going for Dave. Thank you for taking this during this last 4 weeks, coming to the end of this Boost Your Mood for Queer Dudes series. Next, I'll most likely be going into the series around this, I call it the Good Life Positioning System, which helps people, it's helped me as I've developed it, just find a greater direction in my life, but also meaning and purpose and life satisfaction. So I'll be sharing that process that I've developed, that I've gone through myself, and I take my clients through, and it could take us the next several weeks to get through that, but I'm going to be kind of walking you through that process that I take people through. Thanks again for joining me, and have a great rest of your day.